Mania. Nice to have you all with me this morning as people jump on. Just going to check that my sound is okay. It should be. I'm using the same setup I always use, but you never know. You never know at all. Yep, no, that sounds like my voice, which is probably a good thing since it's me. Anyway, all good. Welcome to the craft room. Looks a bit like a bomb has hit it this morning, and it probably has. It's a blending brush bomb. I didn't bother turning the paper over because I think it's just as bad on the other side, and I didn't want to waste it since I'm just going to make it worse. I'm making this card with you this morning. I was looking through my cards that I make, on a regular basis, as you know, and I realised that I've been steering away from sort of more complex designs. My designs are all fairly simple, which is fine because I'm designing classes and card kits and stuff like that, which is good. But I thought today, with the Ranunculus Romance kit, I needed to do bundle. I needed to do something a little bit more outside my comfort zone. Anyway, it's just a lovely design. Lends itself to those sort of antique-y, shabby chic type cards, which also is something that I haven't ventured much into, a little bit outside my taste. So I thought today, as I was scrolling through Pinterest before I got out of bed this morning, I thought I'm going to try something a little bit different, and I'm going to share it with you guys. So try not to judge if it goes too south this morning. It might all end up in a screaming heap. Plus, I think I had a hot flash this morning while I was getting this card ready. So yes, it's been an interesting morning. No wonder it looks a bit like a train wreck in here. But anyway, I'm sort of with it now, so we should be able to. I should be able to get through. We'll see how we go. Anyway, so yeah, we're going to use the Ranuncular Romance. I have borrowed a couple of designs from a couple of demonstrators on Pinterest this morning, and I will pop the credit to them in the descriptions. It's just with all the design in my head, I just can't remember who they were, but there was one very talented demonstrator from Austria and another demonstrator as well who I think is in the US. But as I say, I will pop their names in the description to give them their fair due, but I have sort of smashed their designs together, given it a bit of the Julianne feel, and we'll see how we go from there. As I say to all my team and my customers, if you find yourself a little bit stuck for designs, a little bit of creator's block, the best thing you can do is try and find ideas from other people. And that's sort of a little bit of what I've done today. Anyway, so let's get started. The colours today are predominantly sort of soft, sort of smoky colours. There's a soft succulent card base, and it's quite a big card for me, not bigger than my usual. It's a 5.5 inch square card, so it's a 5.5 by 11 inch piece of cardstock there. So as I say, quite large, nice big square card to form a stage for this design. And there's also a fair bit of the fresh freesia in there as well. So those are the two colours. Forgive the light in my craft room, it's really dark, and if I put the overhead light on, I get some weird very, very, very weird shadows happening. So yes, try just to bear with me if the light gets too dark, but I think it's actually a wee bit better when I look at my iPad. So okay, so let's get started. As I say, it's going to be the Ranuncular Romance bundle with these colours, but there's a lot of use of blending brushes. So I've got my blending brushes here. You can see they're all been used this morning, and the colours I'm using are soft succulent, fresh freesia, and I'm going to be bringing in a fair bit of grey granite as well. So you don't, this time when you're doing a lot of sponging with your grey granite is the worst time to find out that your grey granite has got a bit dry and you haven't got the refill. So I might have to put a bit of elbow grease into that this morning, because that's exactly what happened. So with my soft succulent and fresh freesia, I've got several panels of Whisper White, basic white, one that's cut just for the inside. So I'm just going to leave that one in there for the moment. And then I've got various panels in white as well. So let's have a little look here. So I've got a panel of basic white there that's a 1/4 of an inch smaller. Then the plan is that this next one will come in that's about 3/4 of an inch smaller. Then my fresh freesia, then another panel which is smaller again, and this is all looking very antique-y and unshabby chic. I realise that, but once the brushes get involved, you'll see that things definitely take a different turn. I'm seeing some great new names jumping on today, people saying it's their first time. Hey, it's really great to see you all. Yeah, so pop on, tell me where you're from, and if it's your first time, tell me so as well. So as I say, scrolling through Pinterest this morning, I got this basic design. So, and I will, as I say, give the demonstrators their due when I pop the descriptions in. So I'm going to grab this very first panel of basic white first, and I'm going to grab my grey blending brush, and I'm going to, and as I say, my grey is a wee bit dry and probably getting drier every time I do this, and yeah, I'm going to have to re-ink it or get a re-inker. So basically I'm just going to bring the grey granite just around, because it's going to be covered on the inside, so I'm just going to bring the grey granite around the edges with my blending brush, just ink it up and come in from the edge. It's sometimes best to do your first bit of blending off the cardstock, and then you don't get that, and I've gone against my rule there, you don't get that heavy edge as the brush first enters the colour. So we're just bringing that. We're just going to do probably, what, 1/2 inch all the way around. Going any further in would probably be a bit of a waste since we're covering it with layers. So as I say, this Ranunculus Romance lends itself to this layering and antiquing type look. Haven't got my quite to distressing the edges yet. That's a little bit too brave for me, a step a little bit too far at the moment. Maybe as I experiment with this style, maybe I'll get brave enough to distress the edges as well. Let me know if you've got any hints or tips if you're a big edge distresser. And that has really decided to dry up now, which is going to be difficult later on because we're doing quite a lot of this. Okay, so that's the edges done of my first layer there. What I might also do is bring in this sort of really cool sort of scripty die of the stamp set. And again, in what little grey granite I have left, I'll just pop a couple of those around the edges, just faintly, which is about all I can manage as well, just to give that just on the edges there. Okay, so that's our first layer. That's going to be going over the top of our soft saffron there, so a bit like that. Okay, level number 1. This one just keeps on giving this card. The next one, which is the next level of Whisper White, Whisper White, there goes that name again. I'm just going to leave this one plain, just plain and white, and let it sort of stand out as a little bit starker. I might actually glue these down as we go, just so that I'm not going to have any disasters and lose them or get ink on them or something. So I'll just layer up as we go. So there's our sponged or blended basic white, and then it's going to be this plain white that's going to stay white. Just in the middle, you can see there's quite a big margin there. I think this is a 3/4 of an inch margin, this one here. Slipping back into the inches quite happily. I just put together a bundle for a tutorial group, and they did centimetres, and even though I'm living in a metric country, it just freaked me out that I had to go centimetres for a whole tutorial. It was quite difficult to convert, because centimetres, it's all the decimals you have to go to. It's quite considerable to get the measurements the same. Anyway, all good. So as you can tell, this is my layer of fresh freesia, and I'm using what little of my grey granite I have to actually just take off the edges of that as well. Just sort of antique that up a bit as well. Just a wee bit, not a lot on that one. And that's going to pop over the white of there. So you can see that white does stick out, does sort of stand out quite starkly there, which is quite nice. It's a little bit of contrast there. Okay, so we're going to put that down as well. Obviously, I'm not missing any ribbon or anything. I've already decided there's no intermediate ribbon level that I'm going to miss like I usually do. Okay, so that's the start of our card base there. Okay, so I'll just pop that aside. So this is our very top layer of basic white. It's going to be pretty much unrecognisable by the time I'm finished. So again, I'm going to bring in the grey granite brush action, and I'm going to basically, this time I want it, if it'll cooperate, I want it pretty much totally sponged on the edges. So I will bring in that dark edge. I did when I realised how low on ink my grey granite was, I did contemplate basic grey, but I think that's a bit dark. So I'm bringing in mostly just about everything. I'm going to be doing like the centre of it as well, and I'm going to bring in a tinge of our fresh freesia and a tinge of our soft succulent as well, just in the just amongst the grey. Okay, so just leave that for the moment. I'll bring in my pink brush. I have to give these a very good wash when I'm finished. They haven't been washed for a couple of videos and they're a little bit manky, and the colours are getting a bit distorted. So this is the fresh freesia. I only want a tinge of that, so I'm going to get rid of most of it off and then just bring it in. So it's just going to be the slightest tinge in there. And if you can see that, I'll bring it a bit closer in a minute. Yeah. And then just a wee bit of soft succulent, not a lot. Where's my green brush there? Again, I don't want very much, so I'll take most of it off and then just bring it in. So it's funny, isn't it? I mean, anyone receiving this card probably wouldn't even see that there's a tinge of green there, but as a card maker, you traumatise about how dark it is, or how light it is, or how you haven't put enough, or there you go. So there's a bit of a tinge of green and of pink without grey there. Hopefully I'm getting the light. Oh, there's the sunbeams back. The sun's come from behind a cloud. It happens to be just the one day that I'm quite happy that the sun doesn't come out is when I'm trying to do my 10 a.m. card making session. So anyway, just going to darken that up a wee bit, just where it's slightly lighter, just with my grey. There we are. Just a touch. As I say, you and I are probably the only ones who would notice that little bit there, that little bit of detail. So there's our back. So I'm going to bring in the whole ensemble, and you'll see it all together, and you see that hopefully those colours are showing up a wee bit for you. But yeah, so that's about as close to antiquing as I have ever got in my whole card making career. Let's put it that way. I will play with this one a little bit more, bring back my grey granite and the stamps from the stamp set, and I'm going to pop some, like we did with that first basic white layer. I'm going to pop some of the script around. I would say I have to stamp it off, but I don't think I even have to stamp it off. Oh, just to make it lighter out of me, that one came out quite dark. I think patches of my grey granite are juicier than others. Okay, so I've got a bit of script behind there. You guys can see that when you get a bit closer, it's really, really light. And I might bring in the little postage stamp die as well and pop a couple of those around. I'm not even going to bother pretending to stamp those off because it's already dying. And then the last one is the little, I don't even know what that is. It looks like another little postage stamp type. I haven't put the sticker on this one. I'll pop a couple of those around as well. There we are. So there we are. That's my sort of shabby chic or antique sort of backing there as well. I'll just have a look on my iPad to see whether you guys can see that. My computer is actually quite dark. There we are. Okay, so that's going to pop on top of our fresh freesia, just like that. Just like that. Okay. I might, as I say, oh, my headset keeps, I had my hair cut right, well, really, really short, and I don't have enough hair to keep my headset on my head. It keeps slipping down. Anyway. Okay, so that's pretty much our background happening there. Probably a more effort than I've put into a background for a long, long time, I'd say. Anyway, we might pop that one on the inside just so it doesn't get dirty. I might want it to get a bit dirty, but no, I'll leave that one. Might just do some stamping on the inside. There we are. Okay, so one last thing and another neglected product that I haven't used very much since it came out in the mini catalogue is the Vellum layering designs. And I have a strip here. It's a panel. It's 2 inches wide and about 5 1/4. So it just fits sort of top and bottom from that little thing, that sort of distance between the first level of basic white. And I'm going to give that, as much as I can, I'm going to give that a bit of grey granite as well, just to take the starkness off. But with the vellum, I'm going to do it on the back, just so that it doesn't sort of rub off on my hands. And as much as that is not coming out very well, I can see it's just coming off a wee bit. Definitely need to get the re-inker happening, or at least actually have to order one, because I don't think I've actually got the grey granite. You never sort of think you're going to run out of grey, but I suppose everything happens in time. Okay, I'm going to be layering up with some of our beautiful ranunculus over the top of this, so I'm not too worried about the glue showing through. So I'm just going to glue that down. And because it's all sort of a bit grey and spongy, it's not going to show through too much anyway. So that's going to pop just over there towards the left-hand side. There we are. I think that really adds to the design as well. Thanks to the talented demonstrator that I borrowed that base from. There we go. So that's that one. Okay, so let's have a look what we're going to do with all of this. Just keeping an eye on some of my comments. Nice to see some people finding familiar faces watching. That's really nice. Okay, so I've got bits and bobs here from the ranuncular dies, and I'm going to use those. So I've got in basic white a couple of the little sprigs of sort of blossoms, I suppose they are. In soft succulent, I've got a couple of the leaves. And in the fresh freesia, I've cut out the big, what do I call it, detail ranuncular die. That sort of, it's meant to be a ranunculus all by itself. I have a ribbon in soft succulent that I've already tied, so you guys don't have to watch my tying a bow. And I've got two, I have to get the right ones, two of the ranuncular from the stamp set, which I've already stamped in black. Now, for a reason that will become obvious in a moment, I've done that second generation stamping in black. So the black is not as dark as it would necessarily be. So they have been, as I say, second generation black. And then I have coloured them, and I'll do a third one in a minute, coloured them in light, soft succulent, and light and dark fresh freesia. That's the colours that I've used on those. So I've got two of those. So they're the two normal ones. Now, for the third one, I just wanted to show you, sometimes if you layer up these, I find that if you layer up these images that are all with the same, the same orientation, like you stamp, 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 it all just looks very samey. So with both of these images, the big ranunculus is on the left, and then there's a little bud to the right, and the leaves go in a certain configuration as well. So you can shake that up a wee bit by getting a mirror image happening. So that's what I'm going to do here. And I find the best way of getting a mirror image is to use your good old silicon mat, and that's what I'm going to use for this. So I've got just a piece of basic white that I'm going to use to stamp this image. I've got my stamp and I've got my black ink. So what you do, and if you haven't seen silicon mat mirror imaging before, you actually stamp your image onto the silicon mat, then quickly pop on your paper and smooth it down, and that gives you the image in a mirror. Okay, so it gives you instead of being the big ranunculus on the left, it's going to be on the right, and it's going to be a mirror image of the image, if that makes sense. Yeah, a mirror image of the picture. So I'm going to do that. And what happens, obviously, when you stamp onto silicon and then onto paper, you do lose a little bit of the darkness of the ink. And that's why, to keep the three images similar, that's why I did the first two in stamped off once. So I've got my ranuncular all inked up there pretty heavily. I'm going to chuck it onto, and I don't know why I've chosen to do it down on that left-hand corner, but I will stamp it onto my silicon mat, quickly bring in my piece of basic white, and then you just firm it down. When I first started card making, I tried a million ways to get the mirror image stamping happening, and nothing I found is as effective as this one. So there we are. We have the ranuncular. He's going to come up quite dark, actually, so it did transfer a fair bit of the ink. And if you look at him, he's actually a mirror image of the original the original stampings. So I might pop my mat away. So I'll colour this. Got a bit of a stamp, a bit of an ink splodge there, but that's okay because I'm going to be die cutting it anyway. And there's a wee bit of a trick to die cutting mirror images as well, which I'll show you shortly. So I've got my dark, as with my original images, I've got my dark fresh freesia. And as with a lot of our stamps, the stamp actually tells you where the dark and the light is. So all you need to do is just follow the stamp. Then I'll blend in with my light, fresh freesia. And then I'll bring in my light, soft saffron. Now, you might think I'm incredibly rough colour when you see how I'm doing this, but this particular stamp, because it has such dark parts where the black ink is, it just sort of lends itself to that touch of colour. You don't have to be too picky about the way you colour it in. It's really, I'm just giving it like a hint of soft succulent in and around the darker parts. And that's all it needs. Okay. I'll just bring that a wee bit closer and you can see if it'll focus. It might be my eyes that are not focusing at the moment. Anyway, that's cool. Anyway, so that's got black ink anyway. So now I'm going to die cut this one. And obviously, I'm just trying to make sure I put the die back where it was supposed to be. Obviously, normally, when you die cut, it's going to be die cutting the image from the image straight from the stamp set, whereas I've got it back to front. So the best way I found to do this is to, now I've got to remember, is to put the die behind the image, because that's going to be the right way, bring it up to the light. And you can't see me bringing this up to the light, but I'm bringing it up to the light coming through my craft window and matching the image with the die so that it looks like it's, you know, they're in line with each other. So that's what it looks on that side. But you can see I've lined it up with it just through the light coming through my craft room window. And then if you grab, I'm just heading over to where my die cut machine is, grab some washi tape or masking tape or whatever you use, and just pop that on there so that it's not going to move, because you can't obviously look at it and go, that's moved a bit, I'm going to have to move it back. So you just pop that there so you know it's kept in place. I'll bring my little machine in, still all in his in her dust cover. They're the ones I want. Looks like a little toaster when it's all packed away like that. So I'll bring my little machine out so you can watch the die cutting. Now, making sure I don't move that, because I would hate to move it. And then I'll pop it through, and you'll see that we get, if you're going to go through, yeah, we should get a good image on the reverse. Of course, the edges will look slightly different, because you know when you die cut, you do get a nice sort of roundish edge. So you're actually getting the sharper edge rather than the rounded edge when you die cut. But nonetheless, it die cuts pretty well. So as I say, pop it up to the light, position the die so you can see it through the image, and you should be able to die cut it as a mirror. I'll just get rid of my little baby girl. Off you go, down there. I'll put it back into its dust cover later. So that's our third ranunculus, something like that. Anyway, so I've got my ranunculus will look a little bit different and not quite as samey. So what I'll do is I'll pop 2 on the front like that. And I'll bring the third one in behind. And that is my little bouquet of ranunculus there. Sorry, I've slipped down the screen a bit, got all excited with my mirror image stamping there. So you can do that with just any stamps. You know, sometimes you got a little rabbit or a little hedgehog or a little something, and you'd love him to come and be kissing the same image but reversed. So that's with the silicone mat is an awesome way of doing that. So that's my little image there. So what I'm going to do, and this is as far as I've got with this card. The rest of it from now is making it up as I go. So I knew what I wanted to do till there. So let's see how we go. So I'm going to have the ranunculus at the side underneath, and I'm going to bring in my little posy there, like that. And then we'll bring some of these in. So I'm just putting them all around the place really, and pop one of those down under there, I think. Maybe a white one over here. How does that look? And then I'll put my ribbon, bring my ribbon in, and a little sentiment as well, and that should be it. So let's pop that together. As usual, I won't be able to do that again. That was a one-off. What you've seen, that probably won't happen again. Sue wants about cover. I can find you a link to the lady on Facebook, Sue. She makes them in lots of lovely floral, well, lots of designs really. I think a friend of mine got one with Doctor Who fabric because she's a big Doctor Who fan. So, you know, whatever. But I just love that blue floral fabric when I saw it. But I'll find you a link to her on Facebook. That's how I found her. She does them for the big machines as well. But my big machine gets too much use to worry about a dust cover. Okay, so I'm just popping some glue just around the bigger parts of this die. There's not much there, it's pretty fine. I'm going to pop that on over to the left-hand side. Hoping that I can remember what I did before. Here we are. And then our little posies. Forgive me if I just go quiet because I'm trying to recreate in my brain what I just did. Oh, no, I want to put this one on at the back first. That's the trouble with not being a visual thinker. You sometimes forget where you're headed. That's okay. Things jump up the list. That's the problem. I do things with lists in my head. And sometimes I jump up the list and forget the order that things are meant to be in. But that's okay. That's worked out okay, I think. It's funny, my husband is a visual thinker and he can, from what he describes, it's quite foreign to me. He can actually have a 3D image of something in his brain and actually deconstruct it so he knows how to put it together. It's just crazy. Whereas with me, with me, I sort of have, I want to do this first and then that first. Trying to get a picture to come into my brain is absolutely impossible. Sometimes I get flashes, but it's very, very rare. Yeah, so but Steve, he's amazing. He can basically make things as he goes. It's wonderful. But the trouble is sometimes he talks himself into there being a problem. Like, he knows that there's going to be a problem 10 steps down the track, and that sort of stops him from doing the first 9 steps, which I find a wee bit frustrating sometimes. So I suppose that's the problem when people who think 2 different ways find themselves as partners in this world. That's okay. So yet again, not thinking ahead, I need to put these little leaves in. It's interesting to think about the different ways people think about things and, approach tasks and things. I suppose you're married to someone for 34 years or whatever it is, you sort of get to know them a bit, how they're going to approach a problem. Sorry, I'm gabbling while I try and get this leaf in there. I'll cut them off so I don't have to quite stick it in quite as far. Since I've gone and glued the foreground in before the background, makes it a bit tricky. Okay, learn from Julianne. Don't stick your foreground down before your background's in. Should go in there better. Cut the end off. Just I'm loving this so much, I don't want to ruin it by curling it up too much. So I'll just partially stick them in. I think that's okay. But I will cut them off. I've got these little bits left over. I might bring them in as well. So there's one upside. Bring a couple of those in. There we are. Bit painful to watch, but we got there. There we are. I'm just trying to watch the comments as well. I will get to them at the end of the video, I promise. Okay, so that's mostly decorated, as you can see there. I might glue that down now that I've poked the poor guy up in there. Just there. So just need to bring in our bow and our sentiment. So as I say, I've got a soft succulent bow there that I had just tied already. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Just Because. Here we are, the Just Because sentiment. I'm going to give my grey granite brush one last go with a piece of basic white. And I just want a very thin sentiment box, but I want it to have that grey granite sort of oldie worldy look to it. So I'll bring in my oh gosh, everything's going to go wrong now. Just bring in my Just Because with my black ink. Pop that on there. Yep, that's what I want. And then I'll trim this down. So I'll bring my trimmer in. And I think this will go down to about 3/8 of an inch wide. Not that I can do that with my cutter, but oh, sorry, I've gone way off the bottom there. You can't even see what I'm doing. So I'm just trimming this down, trying to keep it straightish, but that's not straight at all. And then just a trim. It's going to be well and truly less than 1/2 inch all up. There we are. Just a little antique-y Just Because. I'll pop that down here, just across the bottom of our leaves, our stems. And pop it on a couple of little dimensionals, I think. If I can find some little dimensionals that were here before. Here we go. After saying I don't like them because they're too fiddly and avoiding them, I couldn't find them. Here we are. Well, just that one. Now I'll bring in a glue dot and our bow, and I'm going to sort of tuck the bow in under the sentiment a wee bit. So I might just grab that off, that glue dot off the paper, pop it where I want it, and then bring the bow in. There we are. Trim that a wee bit there so it's not over the edge of the card. Too much anyway. There we are. And the original card that I have cased today used the matte black dots. So I thought, well, I'll keep going with a good thing and I will use the black dots as well, just to make a real contrast, you can see there. So I definitely will let you know the name of the demonstrator I cased this card from. There's nothing worse than, well, I don't think, people claim, claiming that they've come up with things, although I have changed it a bit by adding more of the ranuncular to it, but fundamentally it is their design. There you are. So that's my card for today. As I say, totally out of my comfort zone today. So thanks for bearing with me as I went through that journey, I suppose. It's, yeah, I might try and do a little bit more of it and get my own take on some of these designs. But I think I actually really like that. And as I say, the Ranunculus Romance just screams out to have that sort of antique treatment. So there we are. Yeah, I hope you like that one. I hope you'll give it a go yourself, and you know, good rule, always try and do things that are a little bit out of the comfort zone, because that's you know, the only way we learn and grow in whatever we're doing. There you go. That's Julianne's philosophy for the day. I've noticed a couple of you have asked for the link to the lady who made the cover, and I will do that. She's in Australia, so I don't know if you're watching from overseas. I'm not sure that she ships abroad, but you can always contact her and see. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody in practically every country that does the same thing. But anyway, so thanks for joining me for that one. That went a little bit longer than I thought, but it is a fairly complex card, as I say, with something happening practically on every layer as you go. It's lovely seeing you all. Have a great weekend, or Friday night, Saturday, or onto the weekend. And I will see you all during the week. See ya. Bye.